Hey, yeah, I've been expecting you. Please come in, have a seat. I'm almost done. I was just taking some time to center myself, to align with Spirit, God, the universe, my ancestors, whatever you may call it from your paradigm, your worldview. Honestly, I believe it's all the same. There's a through line that goes through all of it, and our collective unconscious tells us the whole story. And as I've sat here, I've already envisioned everything that's going to happen in this video. All of the things that you're going to be thinking, all of the things that are going to occur, what I'm going to say. I've had more than enough time to be able to prepare and think about it, as everybody else went and did their own videos, of course. There's a reason why I'm always lagging behind. I do take the longest time to plan and to think, but I'd like to think that it's always all worth it. Now, I hope that you enjoy this video. I already predict that many of you are going to click out of it because unlike functions such as SE or TE, I'm actually probably the most complex and least straightforward function. But if you take the time to actually try to understand me, then I'm sure that you could actually see how I operate in your everyday life. Because even if you have introverted intuition as a dominant or as an inferior or in your shadow functions, you still have introverted intuition. We all need meaning in our life. We all need some sort of vision. We all have deep meanings and deep readings that we do. We all have dreams. We all interpret things. We all understand symbols and archetypes. And if you're willing to actually explore the depths of the unconscious with me, then have a seat. And I'll do my best to bring the heavens down to the material realm. I think this is the part where the intro begins. My name is Introverted Intuition, also known as NI. I am the dominant function of the INFJ and the INTJ. I'm the auxiliary function of the ENFJ and the ENTJ. I'm the tertiary function of the ISTP and the ISFP, and I'm the inferior function of the ESFP and the ESTP. Now, like I said, regardless of whatever personality type that you are, we all use introverted intuition. Now, you might not use it as much as some other types do, especially the higher up in your stack that it is, but it's still everybody's function that they use, even if it's in their shadow functions. And you're going to understand that as this video goes on, as I continue to explain all of the territory that I cover and that I bleed into. But before we get into that, I would really love for us to take a moment to talk about what I like to call the unconscious, the subconscious, the collective unconscious, the shadow, if you will. Now, to do this, I'm going to actually be using a trick that many of you probably already know about. And if you watch TV shows, then you'll actually know that there's this thing called ink blot tests. Now, when we do ink blot tests, really, it's just a splash of ink that goes onto a piece of paper, and then they like to pretty much use that idea to understand what's going on in a person's subconscious. So whatever you see in the ink is going to tell you a lot about what you see in general. And I feel like that is, again, a really good peek into the subconscious. So as I cut this deck of tarot cards, I would actually like to start us off by giving us a very, very brief tarot reading to just kind of get the energy of what we're about to be looking into and tie in some themes into the rest of this video, because I'm a function that's very tapped into the spiritual realm. I'm a function that does not rely solely on the material, and I actually like to marry the material and the spiritual. The material being SE, because that is my Siamese twin, and then the immaterial or the subconscious being me. So with all of that being said, I'm going to draw out 3 cards. And then after that, I'm going to draw out a single card from this oracle deck. And as we look at it, we're going to observe what the symbolism and what themes will be woven in through the rest of this video. 1, 2, 3. And then before we flip those over, I'm going to take some time to also cut through this deck and see what spirit is going to give us through here. And before I alarm a lot of people, and before we get into the paradigm shift talk and everything, I want to at least explain that what I have going on here is not something for any of you, especially those of you with Christian faith, to be alarmed by. I understand from your paradigm that this could be seen as very demonic in nature, but I can assure you that you're safe. I also at least recommend that you watch until the end of this video, even if you have to break it into parts. I already know that many of you won't, and that's fine. I excuse you in peace. But for those of you who do stick to the end, I think that this might actually change how you view your everyday life. And for those of you who already understand a lot of this, I think that it's going to allow you to see even more how you are not alone and how you are not crazy, even if the rest of the world thinks that you are. So let's get into this. Wow, you guys would not believe this. But here we have the High Priestess, the Hermit, the Star, and then the Sea Turtle as our theme for the drawing. Now, throughout this video, I'm going to be tying these in. But essentially, just to make it a little bit more clear, the High Priestess is actually a great symbol when it comes to thoughts of the divine, thoughts of what's going on behind the veil, intuition and hidden knowledge and the subconscious mind. This card is often associated with wisdom, secrets, and the ability to see beyond the surface. It aligns perfectly with the deep introspective nature of introverted intuition, symbolizing the inner knowing and insight that NI brings. And then we have the Hermit, introspection, self-reflection, and the pursuit of inner truth. It represents a journey inward to seek wisdom and clarity, often requiring solitude and contemplation. This card aligns well with NI's tendency to withdraw and reflect deeply on abstract concepts and future possibilities. And then, of course, we have the Star. Now, the Star represents hope, and it represents inspiration and a sense of destiny. See, the Star signifies clarity, vision, and guidance, and is often associated with looking towards the future with optimism and insight. I would say that this card embodies the visionary aspect of myself and I, highlighting its ability to see potential outcomes and guide others towards a brighter future. And then last but not least, from the Oracle deck, we have the Sea Turtle. Now, the reason why I believe the Sea Turtle is very interesting here is because the Sea Turtle swims through the ocean, and it moves quickly when it's in certain currents, but usually it's going very slowly through what we would call a symbol of the unconscious, the collective unconscious, subconscious, if you will. And that's what we're going to be diving into throughout this video. See, I'm all about the unconscious. I'm all about the subconscious. I'm all about everything that's going on without you even knowing that it's going on. Let's switch positions, shall we? Okay. Much better. All right, so before we get into anything more, I think I should at least tell you a little bit about my facets. So people who have introverted intuition in their stack, especially higher up, usually have a knack for future pacing. for the most likely outcome. Constant running of simulations, kind of like thinking about things that are going to happen in the future, all the different possibilities of what could happen, and then thinking of the most probable thing that's going to happen there. An interest in the symbolism and esoteric, hopping into other people's perspective, and then that helps them with the trajectory of the mind, or what I would like to call also paradigm shifts, which we're going to be talking a lot about later. They tend to be out of tune with a unified reality in the material realm, mainly when SE is not integrated. They can be attentive to their own subconscious thoughts and trajectories, which is also another form of metacognition. They tend to speak in cryptic parables and metaphors. They're often reported to see in images rather than words. Of course, that's not for all NI users potentially, but it's a pattern. They like to make meaning out of things, and they like to contemplate abstract meanings, such as, what is life? Now, at the beginning of this video, I did a tarot reading for y'all. I drew a few cards that are highly symbolic, and then I withdrew meaning from them to be able to weave in the themes throughout this video. And it's just a way to showcase more of how I work. We're all doing this every single day. Like, for example, if I bring up to you the term fire, what do you think of? Fire itself is a symbol. When I talk about water, what are you thinking of? If I say that somebody has a fiery temperament, what does that mean to you? And what correlations do you see between fire and a person's temperament that makes them that way? What if I say somebody has a watery type of temperament? Now what does that mean to you? Let's think about air. Let's talk about somebody who has a grounded type of temperament, very earthy in nature. Now you can see how this also has some sort of correlations to astrology. And then astrology is just a whole bunch of symbols that we put together to also create a story. These things also create what we call archetypes. And archetypes are found everywhere. So let's say, for example, I tell you that this person has a lot of a childlike archetype to them. What comes to mind? What about if I brought to you, okay, this person has a joker type of archetype? What comes to mind there? What about if I say the wise old man archetype, or a father archetype, a mother archetype, a jock, a bully? All of these types of things, hero, villain, victim, these are all archetypes that we are familiar with. And even when it comes to stuff such as like a masculine versus a feminine type of energy in that way, then these are all things that we kind of intuitively understand because our mind collects patterns. And then even if we're conscious of it or not, we are seeing these patterns and we're making meaning out of them. And then we tell these stories to ourselves. But then the thing is, even though we might experience the same reality a lot of times, which is the SE, the unified reality, we're not all taking it in and then translating that reality the same way. That's where I come into the picture. Now, there are a few ways that I show up. And I guess the simplest way that I could put this is that there are two ways. We'll say the analytic way, which is what Dario Nardi would consider to be a lot more assertive, a lot more aggressive, a lot more focused on future planning and creating a long-term type of plan focused on one vision, having like a tunnel vision, and it's very laser pointed in that sense. And then there's the more holistic side, which is more about receiving insight, allowing spirit, allowing God, allowing your ancestors, allowing your intuition, allowing nature, whatever you want to call this sort of intake of the insight that you receive throughout your day. That is what the holistic NI side is bringing. And once again, even if I'm not in your immediate stack, you are still doing this to an extent. We are still collecting, even if it's in your shadow functions. You might not be as aware of it because it's in your shadow, or it might be harder for you to access it and you're using different things such as extroverted intuition and introverted sensing to be able to perceive your world. But those with introverted intuition are usually the types that pretty much have thought A, and then as they go to thought B, C, D, all the way over to Q, then subconsciously their mind is like, wait a minute, how did I get from thought A to thought Q? And then it retraces its thought process till it gets right back to A. And then before you know it, then the introverted intuitive user is like, oh, now I understand the correlation between A and Q. So when somebody else now is talking and then they might mention something like G, then the introverted intuitive might be like, P? And then the person might be like, whoa, how did you know that? Are you a mind reader? Are you able to? No, not really. It's because the introverted intuitive user has taken so much time to be able to understand the pattern of their own mind that now they can understand the pattern of other people's minds. This is kind of like the illusions of when people incept seeds into somebody else's mind. They know that, okay, if I start talking about the color yellow a lot of times, before you know it, people are going to go out and they're going to start noticing every yellow car here. Let's say I have some guests over and I made a fortune cookie tailor-made, and they don't know that I made a tailor-made fortune cookie. And, you know, as all of the guests are over, this specific person, I give them the tailor-made cookie. And when we all crack open the cookies together and we're reading the fortunes and all of that, and it could be just for fun, this person's might be so specific to theirs that they might take it seriously and then they might do something with it. I might know that that person needs some sort of sign from the universe or from God to finally start this company, and they've been waiting for so long, but they're not receiving that sign. And so now I put this fortune inside their cookie or whatever, and it's like, whoa. And of course, this depends on the type of individual that you are. This could be a manipulative tactic, which is used by a lot of people in general, you know, and so I'm not always used in a good way, but then it also could be that sign that's necessary. Somebody could see it as a vessel that was used by God to be able to translate this message to get this person to finally start their business. Have you ever had a dream and then just did the SE thing where it's like, it doesn't mean anything? A lot of times, maybe it really doesn't mean anything. But when it comes to me, everything always means something. And I'll repeat that. When it comes to me, introverted intuition, everything always means something. It's not a coincidence that you had this dream. And as random as it might seem like, your subconscious is trying to tell you something. And if you take some time to listen to it, if you take some time to decode it, to decipher it, to see what's going on over there, that very meaning that you received is exactly what God was trying to tell you. Some people get triggered by the word God, so we'll say Spirit is trying to tell you. Or some people might get triggered by that. Source is trying to tell you. Okay, fine. If you don't like that term, how about your ancestors is trying to tell you? Okay, maybe not even that. Okay, your intuition is trying to tell you. Now, somebody might be like, why do you keep on interchanging all of these things? The thing is, when we shift paradigms, then we're able to see that a lot of these things that we're referring to are kind of like the same thing. Let me give you an example. If I were to show you a circle that was the color as we know it, red, and then I wrote into the circle blue, that'd be quite confusing for some people now, wouldn't it be? See, a lot of times in our world, we tend to look at things and we all might see the exact same thing, but then our own interpretations will create our worldview. And then enough of that worldview being collected creates a paradigm. A paradigm is now what we might call Plato's allegory of the cave, not even knowing that you are in your own type of world, perceiving the world in a certain type of way. We see this a lot in religious systems. So let's just say, hypothetically, if I grew up believing that dogs were vicious creatures that were always just trying to attack people, and my family instilled this in me, and one day I went off to a home with some friends, and as I'm hanging out with my friends, there's a dog in the distance of the home, and the dog spots me and it fixates on me as opposed to all of my other friends. Now my mind might tell me oh, it's because the dog knows that I'm onto its tactics and everything like that, when in actuality the dog probably is just aware that I'm acting irregularly from the rest of the friends who are not really acknowledging it in that way. but my fear is coming off to the dog, which is making the dog also a little bit fearful. And then if the dog now decides to lash out at me and attack me, it further instills this mindset that dogs are vicious, dogs are evil. And I go home and I tell my family, yes, the dog attacked me and this, that, and boom, boom, boom. And then somebody might say, well, then how come the dog only attacked you but not your friends? And might think to myself, well, it's because I was the only one who was on to what that dog was up to. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But that's done to say that it's the absolute truth. That's your paradigm. What if the dog was really just afraid of you because you were the only one that was acting weird, and so what you thought was discernment because the dog was fixated on you was in reality just the dog being fearful of you because you already had these preconceived notions about the dog to begin with, which then created a self-fulfilling prophecy that now instilled your belief even more. Now let's take this into the spiritual realm, and let's say that dogs are what we now call demons. Are you catching my drift here? Now, of course, maybe demons actually exist and they are as vicious as you might think that they are. But then from another person's paradigm, demons are just spirits that are dogs. They're like animals that can shift and change based on how you treat them. And they're not even really called demons. They're just normal spirits that are neutral. Think about that. Another example of a paradigm shift, let's say, for example, that you grew up believing that every time a volcano erupted in this village that you lived at, then this volcano erupting meant that God was angry. And everybody in your village was like, yeah, of course, this is obvious. This is what it is. So you take that to heart and you're like, okay, this is obviously what it is. And then let's say that you meet somebody else who grew up in a village way down the way, and you meet with them, and then they also talk about that same volcano, and they said, oh, on the other side of the volcano, in our village, they said that whenever the volcano erupts, it's actually a sign from God that all of the men who are married are supposed to go home and inseminate their wives. Well, what if these two start arguing now? Which one of them is right? Which one of them is wrong? They themselves might not even know, but it would be kind of foolish for them to just stick to their own paradigm and say that mine is the right one, right? No, it's just the way that you started to view the world, and then you probably didn't even question it. Of course, some of this is now bleeding into introverted thinking territory, where it's like, okay, now I have to review the things that I've thought to myself and then kind of retrace. It doesn't necessarily mean that I throw out the baby with the bathwater. It doesn't necessarily mean that what I believe to be true is false. It just means that, okay, wait, I have to step back, and there's probably other plausible ways to view this same situation. I'm probably going a little bit over your head, but let me try to zoom this in a little bit more. We all look at the same world, but we all interpret it differently. We all see spirits. And the way that this person might interpret that spirit is a different way than what this person might interpret that spirit. We all read texts, and the way that somebody might interpret the text might be different than what this other person interprets the text. Even thinking of the Bible, very different people with good intent come together, and they're still interpreting the Bible differently. And then they'll claim that, oh, all of them are claiming that the Holy Spirit is giving them that understanding of what the word means. But then what if your Holy Spirit contradicts of what that other person's Holy Spirit says? Does that mean that yours is right? Does that mean they're both right? Does that mean they're both wrong? What does the volcano erupting actually even mean? Do you see how now a volcano and the Holy Spirit are now correlated? I'm having too much fun. Please, let's continue. Now, this idea of paradigms is actually a really, really huge one, because it's essentially the notion that Morpheus was giving in the Matrix. Because when we think about Plato's allegory of the cave, this idea of simulation theory, then you start to understand too that to have a view for a paradigm, to have this idea that the reality that you're viewing is not really what it actually is. The reality that you grew up believing was true for everybody could actually not really be the only or the accurate one. That could be very disturbing for a lot of people. Who wants to question their reality? It's one thing to question your thoughts, as T.I. would do. It's one thing to question your own values, as F.I. would do. It's one thing to even question your memories and your experiences, as S.I. and S.E. might do. But N.I., myself, I question your reality. How do you know that the person that you're with right now is not even just a figment of your own imagination? Somebody who has schizophrenia, or maybe is dealing with dissociative identity disorder, their paradigm is very different from the normal person's. Normal, even. All of this gets so convoluted. And if you're not able to shift paradigms to understand somebody else's perspective, not even just their perspective, but the way that they are viewing the world, the way that they might see the same thing that you are viewing, and they might interpret it differently, then you'll never really be able to understand empathy on a deep level. You won't really be able to actually even trust your own perception of life. Or you might overly trust it. You might be out of tune of how many different perceptions of life that there might come. Now let's think about meditation. Really getting into yourself, really coming to understand your own insight. When you sit in silence, the thoughts that start to become clear, the thoughts that start to swirl and then settle down, that's usually where I come in the best, like a flash of lightning. When you have your best epiphanies, those thoughts that you have in the shower, when you're struck with an idea, when you're struck with an insight, when you're struck with a sudden realization of what somebody might be going through. That is me at play. But this often requires either hypnotism of the sensory or a complete shutdown of the sensory. I do not work my best when I am overwhelmed with sensory information. If I'm in a very loud area with a whole bunch of different types of smells and different lights and just a lot of like overwhelming sensory information, then it's hard for me, introverted intuition, to really gain my best insights, to really give my best epiphanies of life. And that's why sometimes I try to get as far away as I can from SE, my Siamese twin. But if I stay away from SE for too long, then my insights start to become stale. They start to become dry. I'm not experiencing enough reality to be able to properly interpret reality. How can my insights now be trusted if I just keep on rejecting reality? I'm way too untethered from reality. I'm not grounded enough. Let's talk a little bit more about this when it comes to our tarot cards, shall we? Let's first look at the High Priestess here. If you observe her, you'll see that she's actually sitting in front of a veil. This veil is actually said to be separation between the material realm and the spiritual realm, where the High Priestess can dwell and move seamlessly through very effortlessly. And then when you look even closer, you'll see that she's sitting in between two pillars. The black one, that's represented for Boaz, and then the white one that's represented for Jachin. And these, in essence, also stand for duality. The black one representing more for a negation, like no, and then the white one representing for yes. She's seated perfectly in between. There's so much symbolism here. Even looking at the cross there, some may look at it and then their symbol could be, oh, Jesus Christ, which is a whole symbol in and of itself. Others will look at it and see that it's actually the meeting of the horizontal and the vertical, which is kind of the dissection of the horizontal plane, which is the material realm, and then the vertical plane, which is the heavens meeting the earth, the spiritual realm. Let's look at another card here, the Star. I love what we see here because, as you can see, one foot is standing on the water. and then another foot on ground. This is to show that even though I am important, I still need groundedness. What good am I, introverted intuition, if nobody can understand me? If I'm far too cryptic and far too lofty with the ways that I speak, that I'm not even able to help anybody. As T.I. likes to say, everybody can utilize gargantuan idioms to fabricate intelligence at will. But to actually simplify the most complex things in life for even the most grounded people to understand, now that is intelligence, that is divine. And when we look at this card, you'll see that the woman here, standing in nature, 1 foot in reality, 1 foot grounded, while the other one in the spiritual realm on top of the water, that's also representing the unconscious, and then taking water from there and then spilling that same water onto the material realm, bringing insight and new life to the world in which she's come from. So much rich symbolism there, even. And then we switch to the hermit. The hermit here, who is standing on top of what we might see as a mountain, alone, but also pleased. He holds up a lantern that illuminates his path, but only a few steps forward, because in order to be able to see the rest of it, he has to take action. Yes, he's in solitude, but even still, he must be taking action. SE is where action takes place. The more of reality, the more action that you take, the more information that you receive, and then you're able to actually use that information to be able to interpret properly what's going to happen. And then your best insights, your illuminations from what you see here in this lantern are now made clear. And then you're able to also guide other people. And as I said before, the sea turtle from the Oracle deck, the sea could represent the sea of consciousness and the sea of unconsciousness, the collective unconscious and the personal unconscious. As the sea turtle flows slowly or even quickly through these waters and just observing everything, having a shell that it can retreat into whenever danger might approach, and just calmly moving about. And sea turtles tend to live for years. They tend to be very wise. They tend to be very spiritual, in symbolism at least. They know so much. They understand the sea more than almost any other animal. They've witnessed so many things there. These are all examples of how I show up in the world. Let's think of shamanic journeying. The idea or the action of having a drum beating at a certain frequency, at a certain speed, that then causes certain vibrations to happen in your mind as you go into a trance-like state. And then you begin to imagine yourself in a different realm. And you go on a journey for maybe about 10 to 20 minutes. It's easy to be like, oh, well, I made that up. That was nothing spiritual. It was just my mind doing crazy things. Just like how we talk about our dreams and we dismiss them. SE loves to do that. Don't look at things too deep. And sometimes that's helpful. Even if there's a deeper meaning, doesn't mean that it's helpful to look at the deeper meaning right then and right now, because sometimes that takes time. Sometimes that you need to just have that flash and then take note of it, but then experience more life, SE, before you're able to now make sense of what Spirit was trying to tell you all along. Are you seeing the importance of my relationship with SE? So for many of you NI users who usually try to avoid immersing yourself in the experiences of things, who are so focused on observing things from a distance and being the watchers, but not necessarily the partakers, you are missing out on so many insights that could be poignant for your future development. And take this as a sign right now to start working on doing things differently in your life now. Without me, you would not be able to hear from your ancestors. Without me, you wouldn't be able to hear from God, from the Holy Spirit, from your intuition, from the collective unconscious. I am the key to that. And whenever you have somebody who's looking at something and thinking, oh, this leaf falling is a sign of XYZ, or this tea and the tea leaves are telling me this, divination, even the tarot reading that I did here at the beginning, all of that is great usage of me. It's helping you to be able to understand symbolism, to be able to uncover what's going on in your own mind. Now, if you look at certain tarot cards and you get certain readings, it says a lot about what's happening in your own subconscious. Many people might be like, oh, well, no, this is demonic and it's just very overly spiritual in this way. That could be from your paradigm. But think about it from another paradigm, where it's really just actually a reflection of your own mind, and it's a gateway, it's a doorway to your subconscious, just like an ink blot would be. And there's a lot of symbols on these cards that'll help you to be able to identify what's going on underneath the hood of your own mind. Isn't that right, Erie? Catherine, this is for you. When I'm working well with SE, I also then perfect timing. Now, when I'm not working well with SE, then I can plan and I can get in everybody's head so much and everything, and I can just keep on doing that. I can keep on running more simulations and more trajectories and more planning and more thoughts. And then I'm just sitting in this analysis paralysis to the point where I do not take any action. And then I'll act way too late, way too frequently. And once again, what good is all of this planning and all of this knowledge and all of this insight if it's not being imparted into the world? We must get our heads out of the clouds. And we must become more grounded. We must put one foot back into the material where we came from, so that we can actually bless the material with what we're receiving from the spiritual, from the heavens. Because if heaven does not meet earth, well, then earth will continue to just be in hell. Now, I also assist SE, or it could be the reverse, with things like body language. Being able to interpret, okay, this person is shifted and moving in this way. This person made this facial expression. This person is sitting in this type of way. What does that mean? SE now by itself might just think nothing of it. But because of me, I add a lot of patterning to, like, oh, people who tend to sit this way or tend to make this face or whatever, they tend to actually be sad or happy, dismayed, angry, anxious, lying, all of these different things. It's helping with body language. It's helping to understand more about a person. Now, another thing that I've also been really good at doing is seeing the dominoes and how they're going to fall. What I mean by that is that the dominoes here represent a series of events. If this happens, then this might happen, and 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 that'll lead to this happening at the end of the day.
Whoa, dude, they have Froyo here. We should totally get Froyo after this. What was that?
In the fifth dimension, you can see all of your possible paths, even ones you don't choose to do. Don't dilly-dally. The longer you stay, the more complicated things will become. Good luck.
So usually those who have NI and SE closer together, there's actually a point where the dominoes are being set up. So it's like, well, of course I can tell what the future is, because I'm the one who actually prepared and set up and orchestrated the events for this future to occur, because I've been so tapped into how these dominoes work that now I can create my own domino system. And then those who haven't really integrated their SE, a lot of times they're just understanding how the domino system works, but they're not necessarily building their own, or they're not necessarily creating the long-term plan or orchestrating things. They're more so positioning themselves at, like, okay, when the dominoes fall, this is where I should be at, because they're seeing the trajectory of where all of these things will happen. Now, both of these techniques are actually really good. And for somebody who is really tapping into the usage of me as a function, they should learn how to do both. How to not only just create the dominoes, but to also see the trajectory of the dominoes in our everyday lives and position themselves properly for it. But then also those who are just more about positioning and not doing too much SE work to actually like set up the dominoes themselves should learn to take more action and set up the dominoes more. As you can see, I'm a very complex function, and I haven't even really gotten into everything that I really consist of. But a lot of times, this is mainly because a lot of what I consist of is usually found at a focal point. And that's pretty much me searching for meaning. It's me future pacing. It's me preparing in advance, okay, this is all of the things that's going to happen. And for people who have NI as a dominant function, they inevitably will have SE as an inferior function. This means a few things. Number one, this means that they can see very far ahead, and they need to see far ahead because their SE is a place of uncertainty for them. If they don't see far ahead, then if they get caught up in something they were not expecting, they do not have enough calibration, enough confidence in their own body, in their ability to improvise and to be able to shift and move and recalibrate the plan in real time, like how a higher SE user might. And so then that's when they run into a lot of trouble. Just like a higher SE user might not really be able to or see the need to plan as far ahead because they can rely more on their spontaneity and their improvisation. Another thing that might happen with that is that the higher stacked NI user might read so deeply into so many different things that they're missing the actual concrete point. And they're interpreting things so differently that they're missing so much, and their paradigm is just so convoluted that they're viewing things in a way that is completely out of whack with reality. And it clashes with other people's reality. Now, a very healthy NI user understands that everybody has a universe within them. Everybody is viewing their reality differently. Everybody has a different paradigm. Even if some paradigms are similar, such as those who are Muslim or those who are atheists or those who are Christians, very similar paradigms to each other, but even within those subgroups, even within those religious groups, their paradigms still have some differences. There's still nitty-gritties there. There's still different ways of perceiving things. As an NI user, a healthy and developed NI user, you are able to gather all of these perspectives. You're able to keep a foot in the material realm and reality and be able to understand and continue to understand all of these paradigms. Continue to try to view the world outside of yourself. Somebody once said that the easiest way to be brainwashed is to be born. Understanding that the moment that you were born, you started to formulate a paradigm. You started to formulate a specific way that you view the world, the way that you perceive reality, that is personal to you. And it's not to say that it's wrong or that it's inaccurate. Who am I to tell you that my reality is actually more sufficient than yours is? For all I know, I'm probably not even perceiving reality properly either. But at least have knowledge that other people are perceiving that same reality in different ways. And at least having that knowledge and then going a step further to try to understand and see through their eyes the same things that they're seeing, that helps so much. You call it demon. What does that person call it? How do you know if you're both right? How do you know if you're both wrong? How do you know if one of you is right and one of you is wrong? A lot of things that I have to deal with are not able to be confirmed. And that's a big thing that we need to be aware of when we're using me as a function. SE confirms everything, but there's some things that are just out of SE's grip, and that's where I come into the picture. How do we really know that past lives exist? How do we really know that heaven and hell exist? How do we really know that we actually just have nothing? There's no way to verify these things. We have intuitions and dreams and musings from ancestors and spirits. But even then, somebody could also always just come in and discredit that and invalidate that. It's all a paradigm. Be aware of your own paradigm and be aware of other people's paradigm. And if you want to go the further step, try to understand other people's paradigm outside of your own. Your universe is not the only one that exists. There's a multiverse, and that multiverse is within other people. Even if they might not know, it is up to you, especially those of you with NI up higher, to understand this about other people. If you made it this far in the video, I would just like to thank you for actually taking the time to watch this. I know that I can be very long-winded, and I know that I can also be very hard to understand. I tried my best to take the insight from the heavens and make them more material and digestible for you. It's not because I believe that you're stupid, it's actually far from it. It's just because I know how conceptual and abstract a lot of the things that I think up here are, and how difficult it can be to translate that and be a messenger to those in the world of what Spirit tells me, of what I gain from the source. But hopefully, you've been able to gain at least what you were needed to gain. I believe that everything does happen for a reason. I believe in synchronicities, which is essentially Carl Jung's idea that things are happening, a chain of events are happening in synchronization as a sign, as a revelation. And I pay attention to those. Now, because SE might be lower, I don't catch everything. Regardless of whatever memes that you see of the INFJs, you say they catch everything. It's not true, because as an SE inferior, you just simply don't. As an SE inferior, you're not aware of all the things that are surrounding you. And if you're really getting out of yourself, then how are you really even aware of the things that you're missing? Of course, you think that you're catching everything because you're only aware of the things that you're catching. You wouldn't be aware of the things that you didn't catch unless if somebody felt the need to tell you, like, hey, well, you actually didn't catch this, and that. Get out of your own perspective. But, once again, if you made it this far in the video, I would like to thank you. And I would also like to extend an invitation to denzelmensah.com, where you'll be able to receive coaching from Denzel. He actually uses NI quite a lot as an ENFJ. He has a lot of experience with it, and he also constantly tries to step out of his own paradigm into other people's paradigm, and he tries to use every facet of NI that he possibly can. So if you are an NI user, he can assist you no matter where it is in your stack, even if it's not in your stack and it's in the shadows. Come to him. Be able to get a profiling session to identify your type, or if you would like coaching, then go ahead and do that. And I'm also going to step on another limb and predict that a lot of you watching, you're not even subscribed. If you don't mind, and you really did like this video, don't forget, because I'm sure that you were about to, don't forget to click the like button, the thumbs up button. It really does help out this channel. And then also hit the subscribe button. And if you want to go even a step further, hit that alarm button so that you know every time that Denzel is posting. It'll actually really help out his channel a lot. And for many of you who have asked during this series about donating, which is so kind of you, you can also donate. There will be a link in the description to Denzel's Cash App and his PayPal link, where you can donate any amount that you would like to support his channel. He's very appreciative of that. Now, thank you once again for just joining me today and for watching through this whole series. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your life. And please, do not forget that you matter. Done. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video. And if you enjoyed that, please like and subscribe. It actually really helps out my channel a lot, so that more people who actually care about what I want to say can actually find me a lot more easier. Also, if you did enjoy it, then maybe you'll enjoy a lot of my other content as well. So be sure to check out some of my playlists where you'll be able to find a lot of my older videos and older content. And last but not least, if you would like any profiling sessions or coaching sessions, be sure to check out denzelmensah.com where you'll be able to book me and you'll see the rest of my services. But thanks again and have a great day. Erie, come here. For those of you who don't know, every time that you are hearing from spirit, that you are hearing from your own intuition, that you believe that a sign is happening,